Hey there. Quick note about this episode. While we were recording this episode, my internet tended to go in and out a few times, and therefore my voice cuts off. I tried to fix this in post editing, but wanted to make that note before you guys dive in and listen. Thank you.
News, politics, culture, current events. We all have different views, but we stand on common ground. We all have different views, but we stand on common ground.
Let's get going, boys.
Welcome. Welcome to the third episode of the Different Views, Common Ground podcast. This is the much anticipated episode amongst this group, at least for our discussion in the civil unrest, the social unrest that's going on in our country currently. We'll also be covering what is the best burger chain in the country. I know that's going to be a really heated debate. It might be even more heated than our topic of civil unrest. But as always, I'm joined by my fellow hosts, Walter Sobchak. We got Ralphie Nades, and the glorious Arnold Reagan is back in our presence.
The return.
I'm back, baby.
The return of Arnold. I would be back. I would also like to welcome our special guest, Donny Nix.
What's going on?
Our first time guest for Donny Nix. So, Donny, we've all kind of gave our basic political views in our first episode, but I wanted to ask you before we get started in this week's topic, where do you generally lean? You know, if you put yourself on like a political compass or spectrum, and what are some of the most important issues to you currently?
It's a damn good question. I probably lean more towards left. I vote primarily for the Democratic side, but it's if I had to call myself something, I would definitely call myself independent. I could see good points and good arguments from both sides. There's certain issues that I side a little bit more right than I do left, but for the most part, and the past elections and the primaries, I am registered as Democrat because I want to vote in the primaries, and that's generally how I lean. It's a matter of looking at the issues, and if I have to sacrifice an issue or two that I may not agree with, but I get more with the left side, then that's the side that I go with. Unfortunately, you're limited to these two choices. There's not a whole lot you could do about that. But as far as issues, for me, there's two major issues. One is never really talked about all too much is education. For me, I think that's the most important issue ever in this country. It's not a priority. It needs to be. I think you give kids, students a jump start, an equal shake from the get-go. It gives everybody an opportunity, equal opportunity. Nobody's coming out with a higher advantage than another person. And that's really what America should be all about, right? Land of opportunity. And the second issue that's near and dear is healthcare. I think it's absolutely absurd that we get a bill for trying to get yourself better, trying to feel better, get a checkup, and making sure that your heart is ticking. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. We're the only developed country that has a system that treats healthcare as a product. If, in my opinion, if you fix the healthcare issue and put more focus in funding and equality in education, I think you'll see a lot less riots, a lot less protests, a lot less shootings, a lot less inequality just overall. Which again, I'm a patriot. I love my country. I dislike my government at the moment, but I am for I'm all about the United States. It's given me a whole lot. There's definitely a lot worse countries out there, but there's better countries out there as well. But what this country has and no other country has is that sense of individuality, that sense of freedom, and no matter whoever's in the office and whoever you may vote for, you can never take that away from us.
Yeah,
that's
it. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing those. That's some really good points. I think you're right that education is something that is not ever talked about nearly enough as it should be. And, kind of preaching to the choir on the healthcare issue, too. I think Walter and Ralphie probably disagree more specifically on how to get that done. But, yeah, those are definitely good points. So thanks for sharing. We'll go ahead and get started with this week's topic, which is the civil unrest issue and the social unrest, the protests and riots in the streets. I'd like to start off by saying, we're 5 white guys talking about this, so we definitely do have that, I guess, limited view. We're definitely missing a perspective from a person of color, and I think that is important, but it also doesn't negate how our views are on what's going on in the country as well, given that we live in it. So, wanted to call it out up front. But basically, what we have right now in the country is people protesting. There's these bigger waves of unrest after incidents that specifically between police and people of color that have generally sparked and triggered the most recent protests that are going on in the streets. The Ahmaud Arbery murder, I think that happened earlier this year, which wasn't wasn't caused by police. It was just 2 Georgia rednecks. I think one was actually used to be in the police in some fashion, but honestly, probably the most disturbing video I've ever seen. I'll hands down say that I wish I hadn't seen that video, and I saw it, and it really actually made me sick watching that, because it just screamed pure racism to me. And then we have the Breonna Taylor case, which is, for those who don't know, was killed in her sleep when 3 plainclothes officers broke into the apartment she was sharing, I think, with her boyfriend. Boyfriend opened fire on them because there were 3 people storming in their apartment. My understanding is she got caught in the crossfire, shot in her sleep 8 times, murdered in her sleep. And then we move on to the George Floyd video with 3 officers kneeling on him, one on his neck or chest back area, while the 4th sat and watched for 8.5 minutes, died on camera. People saw a video. That's, I think, what really sparked a lot of the protests, and that's what got people out actually marching and protesting. That was the big trigger. And then lastly, the most recent occurrence was with Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which I think is right outside Milwaukee. He was walking back to his car, entering his vehicle to, I think he had a knife in there, and the police shot him 7 times in the back, point blank range, which he survived, but not without lifelong consequences and damage to his health because of that. So with that framework of what's going on in the country and why these protests are going on right now, I think that's, like I said, generally has been the catalyst for what it is, but I don't know if that's why people are protesting and rioting, which we'll get into that. I'd like to start off with what your guys' thoughts are just surrounding those 4 specific incidences that I just touched on. I think I always start with you, Walter, so let's change it up. We'll start with Ralphie. What are your thoughts on just in general those 4 issues?
I mean, it's clearly apparent that there is an issue with systemic racism in this country. The Breonna Taylor, I'm going to start with that one first. I think that's the biggest issue. That was what?
Ralphie's voice changed.
Did it change it to a robot again? Did it change like robotic again?
You're
forgot
Arnold,
your-
dog.
You
You're
forgot
Arnold.
your name, dog.
You're Arnold. You
Oh,
can't
my
smoke a
bad.
bowl before the episode. You gotta wait till the end. Forgot your name. No. Go. Okay, we'll start with you, Arnold.
No, that's fine.
No, go ahead. You missed 1 week. You gotta get back in. No, let's go. Let's hear it. What were you saying? Start with you.
All right, we're going
All right.
live. Fuck it. So who's going?
You're up, bud.
All right. Well, the biggest one that I mean, obviously all four of them are a huge issue. The Breonna Taylor one is just absolutely ridiculous. I think the idea of, I mean, how do you get it that wrong? Like, how do you get it that wrong? She was a correctional officer, or was she a security guard? One of the two. Like,
She's an
how do
EMT.
you?
EMT.
I mean, probably on top of that too. I mean, she was probably all three, to be honest with you. She had the right to carry a gun. Her and her boyfriend both had the right to carry a gun. They both were licensed to hold, and they just got it so wrong. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And there should be, I think all of them, they should all be in trouble. These police officers. The one that I have, the one with Jacob Blake is like a tough situation because I know he was going for a weapon. I don't believe that 7 times somebody should unload a gun, into somebody. And, I don't know what exactly the story was with tasers and stuff like that. I don't know. Can someone correct me here or not? I heard somebody say that they did try to use a taser on him, but it didn't work. But still, I don't believe that you should be unloading 7 shots into somebody. They could have taken a nightstick out and hit him in the back of the knees, something to bring him down. And at that point, if he had resisted and pulled for a gun, then I could understand, pulling on one of the officers' guns, then I could see them unloading 7 times, but that wasn't the case.
I'm looking up. It's showing 2 officers shot tasers.
Okay, so they did shoot tasers. Yeah. I mean, still, 7 shots is ridiculous. If it was 1 shot and the person stopped and they shot him in the back of the knee, I mean, I feel like that's fair. If he's going for a weapon, you shoot him in the back of the leg. Okay, don't go for a weapon, but 7 times is a little bit out of hand. Way out of hand. The George Floyd thing, as much as he had counterfeit money or whatever, I still don't think that you need to put your knee into somebody. And if they're resisting arrest, there's other ways to restrain someone. But a knee into someone's neck after playing for help is a serious issue. So with all that, I understand why people are up in arms and why people are so upset. I mean, it's disgusting. It's really disgusting to think. I mean, if that was any of us, we would be fine. Like, they would have just probably let us go, or we would have just gotten a citation on the street, or they would just handcuffed us and that was it. But it's a serious problem. It really is.
Do you think, and I'm going to add this into the rest of you as well. Do you think, Arnold, that what occurred, and you kind of touched on it, saying it wouldn't happen to us, but do you think it was due to race, or at least played a part in that?
I think for sure. Yeah, I think that there is some sort of race, whether it be that they're outright racist. I don't know if those are they're what they are, or they're just kind of like a stereotype that, like, I'm a police officer and this person is going for a gun because they are of color. I don't know if they're outright racist. I don't, if they're like, posting, KKK articles and things like that. I think that as a cop sometimes, and I'm not trying to justify their actions, I'm just saying from a psychological issue or how things are played, even in the news, it's like, it can be it's played that, like, that is a criminal act, or that they're most likely going to act criminal. And I think it also reflects back also too on like the African American community towards cops. Not all cops are bad, but there is a fear for them because of stories like this. So, I think it is just a stereotype on both sides. And I mean, like I said, I don't know these cops personally. I don't know much about them. All is that they seriously fucked up, and I do think that there is some sort of racism underlying it.
Great. No,
if that makes sense.
Good. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So,
yeah, go ahead, Donnie.
When does it get to the point where we stop saying it's bad apples, couple bad apples, couple bad apples? we just have 4 cases of where this is continuing to happen. I would argue that this is systematic. It's the training that these cops go through. It's profiling that they're taught how to do. They go out. When I say they, police officers go out and they look for a certain profile. And the majority of the time, that profile is a person of color, black, brown, and these are the guys that go on after. I completely reject the fact that it's just a couple of bad police officers out there. This is a deep-rooted, systemic problem, and there's the only way of getting to the bottom of it and fixing these type of issues is to actually provide more funding for the police, not defund, but place funding where it is better served.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Place funding to have police officers learn a little bit about social work, understand where the people that they're interacting with come from, or what backgrounds they come from. One thing they could do right off the bat is actually hire police officers in the actual communities that they're policing.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
COP stands for community-oriented police. That's what it stands for. So why aren't the police officers?
What does PIG stand for?
That I don't know. But it's to me it's despicable. I mean, the George Floyd is considered to me. I consider that a modern day lynching. I mean, it wasn't with a rope and it wasn't with a tree. It was with a knee in the back of the man's neck. I mean, there's just no need for it. The Jacob Blake case. I lived in Florida, I lived in Pennsylvania, and I had the right to carry a firearm. And I did exercise that right. And there's people think you're like, okay, you carry a gun, you're like, you think you're like a king of the world, hot shot. It's not even close to that. It's actually an awesome responsibility. You have a piece of equipment in your pocket, in your waistband, that could do some serious damage. When I carried and when I walked about, going to Walmart or whatever by day to day, that having that firearm on me was always in the top of my mind, was always something you had to think about. And you actually, at least for me, you actually go out of your way to get out of people's way, to not get involved, because you have this power, right? But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's not for everybody. It's not for the light of heart. And I think people think, people carry guns. Why do they do that? The type of people that do carry weapons like that, concealed weapons especially, it's a serious matter. And I took it seriously, and I think a lot of other folks who are in that position do as well. But my main point is with Jacob Blake is, as a person who carries a firearm, you're not allowed by law to shoot anyone in the back. Even in Florida, to stand your ground. Once that person turns their back, the threat is pacified. It's gone. You're not allowed to take your gun and shoot him. So why is it
they're
that
going for a weapon?
Allegedly going for a weapon.
I'm just saying. I mean, that's great. Allegedly going for a weapon. That is. But I'm just saying, what if somebody is going for a weapon, though? What if there is proof that what if there was a gun? I'm not saying there was a gun in the car, but I'm just saying this guy was fleeing away after being shot twice with tasers, and he was going to his car and allegedly grabbing a knife. I don't know. I mean, this guy seems like, I don't know. It seems like he's resisting arrest. He could potentially be violent versus the charges that he did have on him too. Those were alleged charges as well. But I'm just saying, like with the information they had, it was like, and it was a bad training, clearly bad training on behalf of the police. Like there should have been some other sort of de-escalation before it got to the point of shooting someone in the back. But I'm just saying but I'm just saying that it gets to a point of, somebody is going for a gun or going for a knife after you shot them twice with a taser. I mean, my initial reaction, what I've seen on YouTube, and it's like crackhead gets shot with taser and somehow is like standing there like blah and like charging at a police officer. I mean, we've all seen those videos before, and I'm not saying that's what his attitude was or he is a crack addict or anything like that, but I think that like what do if you're a cop and you're like, I just shot this dude twice with a taser? Like, how do I restrain him?
Yeah.
No,
Take a step back. Take a
For
step back. Let him get it. Let him get the knife. Let him get the gun. Take cover.
Yeah.
Give the man an opportunity. Give the man an opportunity to talk to the guy. Maybe you could talk him off the ledge.
What's also scary too is the guy had 3 kids in the car, right? So I mean, like that one is fucked up. The cop shot him in front of the kids. But the other thing I think is into account is if this guy is not safe, or he's not mentally stable, or he's having an anger management episode, whatever. What if he did get in the car and storm off, and I don't know, crash into a car and kill 3 of those kids? You know, I mean, there's like a number of scenarios. I know it's all what if scenarios, but I'm like,
Yeah, I just feel that I think you hit the nail on the head, Arnold. Is that police are always so quick to escalate the issue when they should be doing the exact opposite. It should have gotten to that point.
I want to get into that. I want to get into that a little bit later too when we talk about the protest. No, it's fine. I want to hear from Ralphie and Walter. What were you guys' thoughts on just those 4 specific cases? And then let's keep talking about it.
The Arbery one, I mean, that's just a clear cut, just racism. You know what I mean? Like those dudes were just racist, and they just saw an opportunity to kill a black man, and they took it. I really feel like it's as simple as that. The Breonna Taylor case is terrible. Those cops definitely need, that's just a sign of bad training, bad instincts, bad decision making. They definitely need better intel before they make some kind of decision like that to literally break down someone's door and threaten with with lethal force. And I think the whole concept of knock raids, where you just break down people's door unexpectedly, I think that's bullshit. So there's a lot that can be done to prevent something like that again in the future. That one's probably the worst one, in my opinion.
Yeah. It just settled. The city just settled, I think, with the family. It's like $12 million. But, the officers are still just a civil case.
I think actually there was some legislation that passed right after that no-knock raids are now banned, like across the country. Right. I'm pretty sure that happened.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
No.
Especially if it's over something like fucking drug crime or something.
Right. Yes. Really, dude?
Yeah. Come on.
It's not necessary at all, ever. It's just escalating the issue. It's
right.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm glad that's the outcome of that. At least something good came out of that.
Yeah.
George Floyd, I think out of all the situations that involve cops, I think that one has the most evidence of the cop being just a racist. Because I genuinely think if it was some white dude on the ground, I don't think he would have put his knee on his neck and let him die over the course of 8 minutes. And I think the cop actually knew that guy. I think he's had a lot of encounters with that guy before, so he probably had some kind of with him, you know what I mean, some personal vendetta or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's racist.
I think they worked a nightclub together or something, as bouncers.
Yeah. So he probably has I don't know. There's a lot going on with that cop. That cop's a dick, dude, big time. Yeah. And I think he should face the long dick of the law.
He looks like an absolute shit.
However, the Jake one, I'm not gonna lie, guys. Honestly, I think he fucked up. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really think the cops did anything wrong, to be perfectly honest with you. And the reason I say that because even if he was going to grab a knife, there's plenty of videos on your internet where a suspect who's, especially if they're high on drugs, like meth or whatever, they can take a whole magazine of a 9mm pistol, which is what cops usually carry, before they even fucking go down. And they can cover a lot of fucking ground during that course of time when that mag is being emptied. I've seen videos where cops, there's a good 10 feet between them and the suspect, and they just charge with the knife. And I've seen videos of cops getting stabbed and shit. And if he's going for a gun, forget it. He's a lethal threat within... And those cops can be killed very, very, very quickly. So that's a tough one for me. To be honest, I kind of think Jacob fucked up.
Yeah.
I really do. I think so. The blame is on Jacob in that one. Like, you already took 2 tasers. You're resisting arrest. You're not following orders. You're running to your car, reaching into your car when you already fucking know. You have to know by now that cops are violent assholes. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that they should be like that. But it's a fucking fact, dude. Cops are violent assholes looking for an opportunity to kill a motherfucker. So why in God's name would you run away from cops and reach into your car for a weapon? That's kind of asking for it, dude. I'm not trying to be a dick, but like, and I don't think that's a racist issue. I think if that was a white guy, Hispanic guy, any guy would have got shot in that situation, in my opinion.
He was probably going to get lit up no matter what. If you're going for a weapon, I think that you're going to get lit up.
Absolutely, dude.
It wouldn't have gone that far if it was a white guy.
Maybe.
Well, the 2 taser thing, that's...
It wouldn't have gone that far if he resisted arrest. It wouldn't have gone that far if he ran away from the cops. It wouldn't have gone that far if he handled it differently, I'll tell you that.
I feel like once the taser's shot, like, and I mean, especially if you both guys shoot tasers, right? Because Johnny, you said both guys shot the tasers.
Well, I just saw an article that said two officers shot their tasers. I don't even know. I didn't see if they.
So I think there was only 2 officers there, so they shot their tasers. Whatever, they can't reload their tasers. I mean, I guess it takes some time to reload it. Their next option is their sidearm, and then I guess when he's going for the weapon, then
when his back is turned, that's your next option. Shoot the guy. Come on.
If he's reaching for a weapon, you have seconds to act, dude. You have seconds to act when somebody's reaching for a weapon. It takes
seconds to tackle somebody, especially 2 against 1. I mean, there's just a lot more.
But they're not going to take that chance. Options. Cops are not going to take that chance when their life is on the line.
I think they should be trained to take that chance. Why'd you join the force if you're not going to take a chance?
That's a debate that we can have, but just.
I mean, aren't they taking a chance every day?
Just speaking from human nature, if somebody's reaching for a weapon and you think they're going for a gun, and you have a gun in your hand and you're aimed at that guy, you're gonna fucking pull the trigger, dude. 9 times out of 10. I'm not saying it's right or not. That's human fucking nature, dude.
Yeah. Let's hear from you, Walter. What are your thoughts on? Oh, sorry.
I don't know about that one, but the rest of them are dead fucked.
Yeah. So as far as like the situations that these guys were in and the police, I don't have a lot of input there because I stay far the fuck away from guns. I don't like. Don was talking about the kind of responsibility that you have to wield one. I've never really been comfortable with that. I stay far away. I can't even begin to imagine the psychology of, what's happening when you feel like your life is on the line. I think there's something to be said about Black people acting more erratically because I think they have a fear that we don't. Wherein when they get into like an altercation like this, they have more. I think if we were in this situation, we can think more logically and be like, okay, all we got to do is listen to what's going on. We're just going to comply and we're not going to be killed. But for them, it could be a little different because there's so many stories. How many times have we heard this same kind of situation go down? So on the flip side, I think they're acting in fear of their life before, and it's just a feedback loop where they act scared, so then the police act scared, and then it ends up coming to a head in a really terrible way. Yeah. So that's my main feedback about that. I think as far as like the aftermath, I think we're probably going to get into that more as far as what ensued after the riots and all that. I think what Don said about giving more money to the police instead of defunding, I think I agree with that, and I haven't heard anybody say that, and I think it would be good to talk that through. I don't know that taking money away from them is going to fix the problem. And I think, the unions are something that we got to talk about. Like, okay, so if we have a bad actor in the police, it's kind of like if you have a pedophile in your teacher as a teacher at the school in your town, right? And if we find out there's a pedophile teacher, the union's not going to be able to cover their ass and say, okay, we're going to keep you working at the school. Everybody's on board. All right, we got to get that pedophile out of there. Like that's just priority 1. That's not what seems to happen with police. Like when they fuck up, it's like, oh, we're going to cover it up. We're going to, it could have been this, it could have been that. And I don't know why people aren't willing to just say, this guy is a bad actor and we don't want him on the force. Like these people are, we pay them with our tax dollars. In a way, they're employees of us. And if they don't work for us, get them the fuck out. Like I don't want to pay for their pension if they're going to act this way. And
True.
all the Blue Lives Matter stuff, it's a career, and it's not even the top 10 most dangerous jobs in the country. There's it's like statistically more dangerous to be a fisherman than a police officer. I could never do the job, and I never would. Like I said, like that's not for me. But if you're gonna take that badge and you're gonna put the weapon in your hand, you better know how to use it, and you better be willing to accept consequences if you act incorrectly. And if you're not, then I think you should probably get a different career. So that's where I'm at on the whole thing.
Those are all good points. I kind of agree a lot too with like what Donnie said about the responsibility of owning a gun, and how if you're going to own a gun, you know the laws, especially if you're carrying it out in public. When I look at the cases, like I think we all agree that Ahmaud Arbery one just straight up racist murders. I mean, they followed him in a pickup truck. To me, that's actually the closest thing to modern day lynching, more so than the George Floyd one, just because that was just straight up chasing him down. It's the sickest thing. I wish I'd never seen it, but at the same time, I'm glad I saw it because it really did open my eyes to a lot of things. Breonna Taylor, again, I think we all kind of agree on that one. She's still waiting justice. Those officers still haven't been arrested for murder, which I think they should be. The George Floyd one, I think that those officers are all culpable. I think especially the Derek Chauvin, the one that's, being the one that was on his neck and the one kind of leading that whole thing. If you're kneeling on a guy's neck for 9 minutes on the ground and you have 4 officers and you can't contain one person, A, all 4 of you shouldn't be police officers. And B, if you're kneeling on some guy's chest when he's telling you he can't breathe, your job as a police officer is not to kill people, it's to protect the public. That it still, in my eyes, includes the criminal that you're arresting. With Jacob Blake, I see where you're coming from, Ralphie. Whole compliance with the law thing. If he had just complied, it wouldn't have happened. But then I think of that and I look at cases like what happened to Philando Castile when he was pulled over, reaching for his glove compartment for his ID and got shot by a police officer after he told the officer, I have a weapon. I'm licensed to carry. And I think part of this, it goes back to, are people of color not just arrested more violently on more frequent basis, but are they targeted for crimes on more frequent basis than a white person can get away with? And I think that kind of plays into it as well. I disagree though. If the guy's got his back towards you and all he has is a knife, that officer did not need to be 2 feet behind him. First of all, I mean, I don't know the training, but especially if you think a guy is reaching for a weapon and you have something that you can use to protect yourself at long range, I would agree that it is kind of the more iffy of these 4 cases of, because he was actually reaching for a weapon, but getting shot in the back 7 times from point blank when there's 2 other cops around, so there's 3 cops total, it was overkill. I think that's kind of where I'm at on those. What were you going to say, Donnie?
So they didn't know he was reaching for a knife till after they shot him. Then they found the knife.
Could have been a gun.
So
from that
it's. I think you made an excellent point. It's when you do comply, folks of color that they're scared out of their goddamn minds, as they very well should be. I mean, it's like they can't do right. Even if you do comply, you get shot. If you don't comply, you get shot. If you fucking fart, you get shot. I mean, it's just like it's that back and forth, like you mentioned before, where they feed off each other. When I say they, I mean the suspect and the police officer. And that's my whole point. Where instead of escalating it and instead of profiling, which I know for a fact they're taught to do. I was a criminal justice major. I took many criminology classes. Profiling is a real thing that is implemented, and that needs to change. The culture, the training needs to change.
Who said the community? Who said that like cops from the community should be cops in that community? Is that you, Donnie?
Donnie.
I think that's literally the best solution. I mean, if you've got,
I agree
just
with
think
that.
about it this way.
It would help.
It should be cops from Southside Chicago, not white guys from, the suburbs of Chicago that are working in Southside Chicago. Like, no, it should be people that are from South Side Chicago that are cops there, or cops from Queens that are there that can relate to community. I mean, here's an example. I'm just thinking. My cousin he's a gay cop in San Diego, and his community that he polices is the gay section of San Diego, and the reason is it's not not to oh, because you're gay you should go here. Like, it's just because it's community. That's where he hangs out.
Yeah.
That's where he goes to the bars. That's where people know him. So,
Yeah.
And I feel like with that, it's like you see somebody that from the community. It's like, okay, like I know them when they're outside of their uniform too, and they're not out to get me, or they're play basketball with them in high
Doing
school.
their
Super
job.
nice person. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that kind of touches too with what Walter was saying about the unions, and I 100% agree. The police unions are out of control with protecting. They look at an affront on one officer or on the practices that a police force uses as an affront on all police officers, which I don't think is how I feel when I'm talking about these kinds of things. I don't think that's how many people feel, but when you look at these union guys speak up, basically just defending them blindly, it kind of alludes to what you're saying, where these unions are just protecting police force, but it happens. Where I can't think of any other job where you can potentially murder someone and still have your job the next day.
Soldier.
Okay, soldier.
Yeah. No, that's exactly
is,
right. They have like a very
That's
military mindset.
Cops are extremely militarized. That's the problem.
Yeah,
right.
It's a tight brotherhood, and that's, I think, where the union protecting each other comes in, because if you're in battle overseas, that's kind of the one thing you got going for you is your guys with you, and I think that prevails in police culture.
You want to know why cops are militarized though, and why they're trigger happy?
They hire ex-military people. That's one reason.
That's one reason. All right, I have a big ass theory that I kind of want to just drop in this group here and see what you guys think of it.
Okay.
So I think the reason why cops are so violent and highly militarized is because the general public in the United States is highly armed and militarized as well. It's because of our Second Amendment rights. I know a lot of people don't agree with this, don't want to talk about it, just want to ignore this issue, but the fact that any American citizen, from a cop's perspective, can be armed contributes to these murders, contributes to this violence. Take Jacob Blake, for example. The reason he got shot is because what is that cop thinking when he's reaching into his car? What's that cop thinking about? What's he going for? A gun. You go to UK, you go to Canada, you go to countries where there's much stricter gun laws, where people don't have access to guns. It's not on the top of the cops' minds. It's not something.
But there's more stabbings there. You see more of these people going on outbreak stabbings because these cops, that, like in London, are the first wave of cops. Don't have guns
less violent though. Their police are less violent statistically.
They are.
If you look at all these other developed nations where they have stricter gun laws, there's far less police murder, far less police violence. It's because in almost all these instances, look at Philando Castile. Is that his name? Sorry if I butchered that.
Yeah.
The reason the cop shot him is because he might have been reaching for what? Let's guess, a gun. It's always a gun. And because a gun, if you reach for a gun, you pull it out, you pull the trigger, that takes less than fucking 2 seconds. A cop, any human, cannot respond in time to that sort of lethal threat. You don't have the time to fuck around.
Unless they're on meth or crack, though.
Regardless, from a cop's perspective, they're looking out for their lives. They want to get home to their families. They know that any person they pull over, any person they have an encounter with, could potentially be a lethal threat within seconds, less than a second. And I think that is the number one reason why there's so much cop violence in America. I do not think it's going to change, ever.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't see the gun laws changing. And even if laws do change, there's still so many fucking guns in this country. There's more guns everywhere. Than people. Legal and illegal. The criminals will still get their guns no matter what because there's just so many guns. The gun manufacturers keep pumping these fuckers out. And this is not as prevalent in other developed nations. And it will not change. I strongly believe that this issue will never change because of this. I strongly believe that. And I think everyone needs to start talking about it.
but let's take away guns. I still think police would be targeting Black Americans and people of color more than white Americans when they are being violent. I think if you had a white guy going to his car, I mean, there's videos too of the white guy with the hatchet slashing at a cop, and the cop just backing away, and dodging, and eventually arrest them peacefully. And I'm sure there are cases where white people are being shot by police unjustly. Like it does happen.
Dude.
It
the guy who's like crawling on the ground, the white guy.
Yeah, it happens. It does happen. I think that part of the violence is, I can see your gun argument. The disproportionality of it affecting Black Americans, I don't think is related to it as much.
Do you think the reason why so many people carry guns is because they can't trust the cops, they can't trust the police, they can't trust the government?
I don't think so.
That whole argument where it goes tyrannical, the only way you're going to be able to defend yourself is to have a gun, I think that's a big contributing factor to why people want AR-15s. This leads me into the protests, actually, where, so starting in May, we had protests. They started in Minneapolis. There's looting, there's burning buildings. That actually spread throughout the country, happened probably just about every city that there is big protests. There was probably some form of vandalism going on. But, 93% peaceful since then. But that kind of goes into that police force. And what we saw, or at least what I saw, was police using these protests and the small amounts of violence that was occurring justify them tear gassing, beating, paddy-wagoning, arresting people for peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights in the streets, and they're beating them and tear gassing civilians. I mean, even in DC, the Cheeto in chief tear gas people just for a photo op. You look at how the police responded to it. In my eyes, they responded to it the worst way they possibly could to get trust in the public. And so when you talk about a tyrannical force, like when the police are beating innocent civilians, where were the people there to stop that tyranny? Where were they to stop that abuse of power? They were siding with the police. So, the gun owners, you mean?
Anyway, I'd like to hear what you guys think of the protests, how they affected in where you guys live. I know here in LA, they were pretty big in a few pockets, but such a big city, I hardly ever saw anything, about it. We did have a few days of early curfew because of that. What's your guys' experience on the protests when they initially took place? Do you think they're too violent? Do you think they're all violent? What do you think of the cause?
I guess, my whole thing for the protests is, as long as they're peaceful, right? I mean, everything around here has been, in Parsippany and all the surrounding communities of what I've heard have been peaceful. The closest area that I think that got hit with any vandalism is New York, which is 40 miles away, if maybe closer. I'm totally against the violence and totally against the looting and burning of buildings. I know in our chat, I think it was you, Johnny, had said that the bigger corporations, that's fine, we can burn that, because they'll just get, insurance will pay for it and things like that. But I don't think that's even right. There's people that lost jobs because of that, because their store burned down. I don't think any of that is getting across the message of, reform. I mean, I totally get hitting the streets, and I don't think the cops reacting by hitting innocent people was just or fair. And I think those police officers or riot police should be prosecuted and pointed out. But, there is just there's violence. And 93%, most of these in these suburb communities, I feel like have been relatively peaceful because there's a huge mix of culture in suburbs, I believe, at least in the area where I grew up. But, I feel like a lot of these protests brought out a lot of negative in societies. Why was, for example, the Kenosha, why were all three people that were involved in that shooting, I know we'll probably go into that too and talking about that, but they weren't from Kenosha. None of those people were. Everyone was from 45 minutes outside of Kenosha, just coming there to meet up. It's Why is it bringing people there? Why can't you go and do what you want to do in your own community and start a protest there? Like, why did you have to go to Kenosha when the people of Kenosha who wanted to protest right and, you know, speak and not be violent, why did, you know, it just turn into a complete shit show because of outsiders? You know, that's my thought process on all of it. So I think everything just clearly just, you know, I think everything escalated because of it. And I mean, so be it. I think that you're totally able to protest and act, you know, use your First Amendment and freedom of speech, you know, like that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, do that. I don't think that police force should have been used in certain situations. Obviously, in some, when you have Molotov cocktails being thrown at police officers and bricks and shit like that, I mean, that creates a war zone. I feel like if you're surrounding a group of cops and throwing bricks at them, I mean, that's not okay, you know?
There are people there that aren't actually protesting for.
Yeah, exactly. They're just causing problems.
Really.
Yeah.
And, you know, to some degree, I mean, it's been noted some of those people inciting violence are right wingers, literally inciting the violence to create this narrative.
Yeah, but there's also far left people too. There's also
I'm not saying there aren't. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it comes from both sides of the violence. It's not just one side.
Well, yeah, I'm sure all of it is incited. Like that one guy driving around in Portland, you know, who got literally shot, like executed by an outright spoken far left, you know, if you want to call him Antifa. Do I believe that guy should have been driving around like talking about Trump? No, that guy is definitely in the wrong place. Like, yeah, that was totally wrong. That guy should go to jail, or I think he died or got shot, whatever. I don't know. But like, whatever, you know, that he killed somebody, he murdered someone, but that guy there definitely shouldn't have been there. So yeah, I totally get it. There's people insinuating this on both sides. What I'm getting at is like people looting, like downtown Chicago, like looting a Nike store. Like, man, like why is that okay?
Need those new LeBrons.
That's just opportunists, you know?
At the same time, I can say like fuck Nike because of like what they do on a political standpoint, and like literally people in China working for like dirt money and then selling these shoes for like $300. So like that's a whole different debate. But like still, like that's where I draw the line. That's where I'm like, things aren't okay. You can't burn a place down.
I was going to say, to clarify in the chat, when I was talking about burning down the bigger corporations, I understand it in the initial like 24, 48 hours following unrest. I understand the looting and the burning. That makes sense to me. Like, people are angry and they want to release their violence on the public, and God willing, there's nobody in those buildings. They're not actually going out and murdering someone. I mean, you light a building on fire, there could be someone in there and kill them. Yeah, that's awful. What I was saying is that if you're gonna be doing it, target the bigger corporations like Target and Walmart, not Joe's boutique shop down the street.
Still jobs, though. People got lost. It's still people in the community that they're rough times. I mean, yeah, they probably could get transferred.
Target doesn't care about those people. You don't get results from protests if it doesn't inconvenience people. If the protest doesn't inconvenience anyone, nothing's gonna happen.
Burning down a business is not inconveniencing somebody. That's fucking arson. That's arson. That's outrageous.
It makes sense in the first 2 days after an incident. It makes sense why it would happen. It makes sense why it happened.
It doesn't fucking make sense. I will fucking stand here and argue that. No, that is bullshit.
I agree that violence is never the answer if you want to get anything productive done. But to play devil's advocate and to kind of understand why the violence is happening, you don't really have to go that far back in time to do that. So everybody says, why do they have to be violent? Why can't they just peacefully protest? What's the big deal? Okay, so go back in time, maybe, I don't know, 4 years after the Trayvon Martin thing happened and Black Lives Matter first originated on Twitter or whatever. You have Colin Kaepernick, who takes a knee at a football game. And everybody says, this guy is a piece of shit. He's an enemy of America. The most peaceful possible thing you could do It's not even disrespectful. They say, oh, it's disrespectful to the flag. It's not like he's flipping the bird to America. He's taking a knee to raise awareness, okay? And then you have half of the country. Tucker Carlson goes on the air every night and says, look at this piece of shit. He hates America and he hates you. And you have a group of people who are just saying, look, Black Lives Matter. We just want to advocate for ourselves. Stop killing us. And half the other country, if you hold up a Black Lives Matter sign right now, half of America will come and spit on the ground pretty much in front of you because it's such a divisive thing. And for that reason, when things get violent, again, I don't condone it, but I do at least understand it. You know what I mean? Like I can see how, if I were them, I would be very angry, personally.
And that, Walter, you bring up in the chat too the difference between Black Lives Matter, the movement, and the group itself too. The actual
I think a lot of man. When the left and the right talk about Black Lives Matter, they're talking about two completely different things. And I figured this out like a couple months ago when I was having a conversation because I was arguing with this right-wing guy and he's saying like, you know, Black Lives Matter is organized. They got all this funding and they're doing this and they're planting people and they're busing people. And I'm like, no, they're not. It's a fucking hashtag. Like, what are you talking about? So then what I realized is when they talk about Black Lives Matter, they're talking about a registered nonprofit that is, yes, headed up by a person who says that they're a Marxist. They're a very small piece of the bigger Black Lives Matter movement, which is just a hashtag of people just saying, look, like black people shouldn't be killed in these conflicts. And I think that's where a lot of the conflict happens because they're talking about two completely different things. One has nothing to do with Marxism. You know, one is just a bunch of people on Twitter. It's a mess, and we got to figure out how to. I guess we could say, you know, refer to it as hashtag Black Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter Incorporated. I don't know. It's like if the NRA were called like the Republicans, and then people went around saying like, oh, well, the Republicans are trying to do this and that. And Republicans would be like, what the fuck? No, we're not. Like, what are you talking about? It creates a bigger problem. But yeah, anyway.
Good point. Donny, your thoughts on these protests and how they've been handled?
I think Walter makes like excellent points. Frustration boils over. I mean, Ralphie, you talked about human reaction, human nature. I mean, cops reacting to potential criminals. Well, these are everyday citizens reacting to their everyday lives. When you're constantly...
So you burn your community.
Take it easy. Let me finish. When you're constantly put down, you're in a system that's designed to make you fail. There's no opportunities in your community, or very limited opportunities. There's no way to get ahead, no way to get the hell out unless you can shoot a basketball really well or tackle somebody better than somebody else. It gets to people. I can't speak from a firsthand point of view, but I can imagine just getting put down every single goddamn day. So you say, oh, you burn your community. What fucking community? What has the community done for me? I don't give a shit. If they don't give a shit about me, if there's no opportunities for me, why the fuck should I even care? So it doesn't justify it. I agree with you there. But I can't imagine living in a situation like that where every fucking goddamn day you are just getting raped by the system and not doing anything about it. And this peaceful protest doesn't quite cut it. So maybe if I burn down the Nike store, maybe if I start looting and maybe I can make a couple bucks by selling the sneakers I stole, you know, because that's the only way to get ahead. And my second point is violence breeds violence. You know, if you're truly there for a peaceful protest and cops show up in riot gear, again, back to Ralphie's point, human reaction, right? You know, oh, okay, you want to show up? We could show up too. So
if you throw a brick, then don't expect to get to get tackled and get your head smashed in the ground. Like you throw a brick and a cop sees that, then you're getting fucking taken to the ground, and you're probably gonna get the shit kicked out of you.
You should get arrested.
I think they fully expect that.
So if you want to put yourself on the line and throw a brick at a cop or throw a rock at a cop and it hits them in the head, right, and knocks out one of their fellow, officers, and they come after that guy and beat the shit out of him. And, I don't know, let's say like he breaks an arm or something like that, that's okay then? Because he brought it upon himself.
I think when people go out to commit violence, and I think they knowingly know, as silly as that sounds, knowingly know that there's going to be retaliation from police. There's going to be, they know they're going to get themselves in trouble. They fully expect, like, oh shit, like I'm putting myself in danger. I'm probably going to get hurt. I might get killed, but it's worth it. Or if there's just the anger boils so high. You ever get so angry you just say something that like you would never say? So it's the same thing, only in a grander scale. Are you thinking about the consequences of your actions when you get to that boiling point, that where it boils over? Are you even thinking about anything besides what you just want to say, what you want to do? You want to punch a hole through that wall. You're not thinking about, oh shit, I got to patch it up and do some sheetrock later to repair the hole I just punched through the wall. You just do it. You're not thinking about it.
So if you were at one of these protests, okay, just, I don't know, you were there just supporting the movement, everything like that, and somebody next to you started looting or started catching fire to, I don't know, mom and pop pizza shop.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do? And then you see more people joining in on it. So you can just stop this guy and be like, hey man, like, let's not burn this place down. Or are you just going to watch the fucking place burn? Would you jump in and get involved? Because you're just so angry about everything going on with the community. Like if Parsippany was just a bunch full of racists and you felt so strong about this and they decided to burn down Anthony Franco's pizza, right? Are you going to like let that fucking happen? Are you going to let that happen? Like, no, you're not. Like, and as much as mad as you're going to be, you're not going to jump in on the fun and be like, let me burn this down. You're going to clearly see that this is not okay. So what my point is that these people that are burning stuff down are not there for good causes. They're not there for a just cause to try to be voiced. These people are there that are burning shit down that don't give a shit about anything. Because if you were there, in your right mind, you wouldn't be, I'm going to burn this down.
You're right.
They don't give as much as you're mad.
They don't give a shit about anything because nobody gives a shit about them.
But they're not there for the just cause. They're there to just cause mayhem.
Yeah, I do agree with you, man. I think there's
probably a fraction of them that are there's definitely a fraction that I think that is like, some of them I've seen a couple of people interviewed and they're like, and have said some things in reflecting the flames that they just caused, and it's like, all right, I get it. I understand what all of you're saying. The anger behind it. I understand. I understand that, but it's like I feel like the people that are there, the 93% that you said, Johnny, that the things have been peaceful. Those people are, it's being overshadowed by all the 7% that's all bad is overshadowing the good.
It might be, but part of that is to blame on media for doing that. But you should know, if you know 93% of it's peaceful, then why do you even care? Like if it's 7%, it shouldn't. It can bother you, but why would you focus on that?
7%, but a lot of that's from the cities. That's in cities. That's not just like. That's not in the suburbs. We don't hear about anything in the suburbs. We don't hear about any of this of burning down or rioting and stuff like that. We're only seeing this in New York, Chicago, Seattle, and Portland. That's where it's really, really fucking bad.
Yeah, that's where there's the most income inequality and poverty, though. That's why. Like to me, these protests
in San Francisco, that's where it's the worst.
True. I think these protests speak to like a much bigger problem. Obviously there's the police violence, of course, but I think it has a lot to do with like income equality and like Donny brought up earlier, his number one issue, education. A lot of these people just don't have opportunities. They're kind of just stuck. And there's no one in office, there's no one in any position of power who's fighting for them or like legitimately trying to change any of that. They all just defend Wall Street. They all protect their rich friends. They don't give a fuck. No one in government gives a fuck about the little man, the little guy who's struggling. So I think a lot of the rage and the violence stems from that issue, to be honest.
I agree on that.
Now, is it justified? I don't know. I kind of sit in the middle. Like, you guys all make great points. Like, it's kind of like human nature to lash out in some kind of way, especially when peaceful protests are ineffective, like with Colin Kaepernick. Like, you guys bring up really good points there, honestly. Like, for me personally, when this shit all started, I kind of supported the violence, to be honest. Like, I was with it. Especially burning down that police station. I don't remember where that was, but I thought that was fucking badass.
That was okay. That
I
was
thought
fine.
that was fucking badass.
I can all get behind that one and agree on that one. That was Annapolis.
There's our common
where all
ground
the
on violence.
The common ground.
Common ground on violence tonight is burning of the police station.
That was dope. I'm not gonna lie. That was like
That's pretty. It
people
was like
power.
some
Like
Gotham Dark Knight shit there.
it was. It's very apocalyptic, but at the same time, like that's the people flexing a little bit. Like showing like we're not fucking around, dude. And I think that's badass. But even like burning down like Target and Walmart, like I was kind of with that too in the beginning. Like I didn't really give a shit. I thought it was kind of cool, especially the major corporations. Where I was always against was the small businesses. Like, come on, man. Like those people are probably in the same fucking boat as a lot of the protesters. Like just scraping by, just trying to make their business succeed. Like this is the only fucking thing they have in life is this fucking business, this little shitty store or whatever. And then a bunch of people fuck it up for something that they had nothing to do with. Like I think that's terrible. I think that's so gross. So like over time, I've shifted towards being so against the violence. And when I see shit like what's going on in Portland, where there's just like, it's basically just civil unrest. There's no police presence. Like people are just fucking killing each other in the streets. Like, to be honest, I kind of feel like there needs to be some kind of authority there. There needs to be some kind of law and order. Like we can't just let that shit keep happening. So I think over time, I've kind of lost respect for all the protests. And I've kind of found myself shifting to the right and being like, yo, you know what? Maybe we need like the fucking feds to come in and like crack some skulls and like enforce the law. Like maybe that's what needs to happen because this shit's way out of hand, dude.
But they did that and it didn't stop anything. It just excited people even more. They had feds there.
What's the damn solution though? It's completely out of hand.
It's like a band-aid on a tumor. I think that's what I said in the chat.
But you're talking a long term to fix the problem. What's the short term
policies? If it's not hard, you put in policies that make sense. I mean, all that has to be done is the House and the Senate to get their shit together and put in some decent policies.
What do you mean by like? Are you talking about police reform, or are you talking about like addressing income inequality, or addressing the cost of college and student loans? Like, what specifically are you referring to?
Opportunity. So if that is with education, then you put in a policy. Okay, starting tomorrow, I'm taking $500 billion from the defense budget, and I'm putting it towards education.
Heard that. I agree.
They could do that overnight if they got their shit together.
Yeah.
I think this is a very strong case for the Bernie model, and it's not even really obvious at the surface. Everybody thinks this is about a couple cops killing some people, but I think like we're finding out now when you think about it some more. Like my boy Jordan Peterson, who I'm a huge fanboy of, he says that the right wing of America, the whole point is to advocate for like hierarchy, right? And the left wing, the whole point is to advocate for the people who stack up on the bottom. Because if too many people stack up on the bottom, they're going to rebel and they're going to say, fuck this whole game. I'm going to flip the whole game board over because maybe I'll end up doing a little better because why not? And I think we're starting to see that there's not been enough people advocating for those on the bottom. And we're seeing like early stages of some bigger kind of revolution. And it's really scary, honestly. And I think you can make that jump to this being a symptom of why we need more. We got to do something with these people, man. We can't just, I don't know what the solution is necessarily, but it can't, we got to try something. Yeah.
When we talk about the violence, like looting and burning, like I said, to me, it makes sense for it to happen within a certain time frame. The people that are going out there and just still doing that shit, it's just, I think that's overboard. I think it's just people committing crimes. And not to say those doing it during the protests necessarily committing crimes, but it just makes sense. Like Donnie was saying, your anger boils over and you're going to release it. And And to some degree, I think some of the people protesting right now, they do view this almost in terms of a war. Like, I don't want to say it is like a war, but that's how they're fighting for these rights. And when you look at like past examples of where maybe peaceful protest works, like Rosa Parks, the whole busing boycott, when they made her move to the back, there was a very easy way. I don't want to say easy, but there was a very clear solution. You just boycott the busing system, they'll lose money and they'll change their laws. They'll change their rules to where it doesn't matter where you sit on the bus. And they boycotted it, and that's what happened. How do you do that with the police? How do you do that with the police? You can't just boycott the police. You can't just take money away from them as from the public, which is where we get these cries for defund the police. Now, I disagree with providing them more funding. And I generally agree with the mindset of defund the police, but more in the frame that it should be restructure the funding for the police.
Not as catchy, dude.
Yeah, this is
Not as catchy.
Restructure the funding for the police.
It's what
I agree. By
that's
the way,
what it's like. Take away from put more money in towards training and hiring the right people for the job, not just hiring ex-military veterans and racist people that want to join the force. I think pay them a higher salary. I mean, pay them more money. They have so much money that goes into the weapons they use. If someone's making a good living, don't think they're going to be that pissed off at the world around them. I think part of the issue is maybe some of these police are pissed off at the world around them just as much as the public is, because they see it every day.
Take away their pensions.
Well,
yeah,
listen,
the thing
qualified
is,
immunity, like that whole thing is just bullshit.
Nobody should have a pension. Just saying.
Well, yeah. The thing is, like I think everybody's afraid that if you defund the police, right, that implies you're taking money away from the police, which I know you're not arguing, but then police will make less, and then you'll have less people who want to be police. So you can be less picky about who you hire as a police officer. And I think what you're saying is true. If you pay them more, you can hold them to higher standards. And it's easier to say, all right, you're an asshole, you're fired. We'll get another cop because we're paying $130K a year, and tons of people want to be a police officer. So I don't know how to manage the budget of a police precinct. I don't know if there's waste, if they spend too much on vehicles or whatever. Like, I don't know that.
Definitely.
I might be talking to my ass, but I think it was like 2/3 of the police budget in LA was just for like vehicles and shit like that. Just like armoring.
They're so militarized,
like that.
Dude.
When
so
think of all the other little avenues that funding could go into within the police force. I mean, that could be going in directly to their HR department to hire people. So
better training.
Yeah.
Wages and training should be the emphasis of funding.
There's too many police departments. You have Parsippany Police. You have Morris County Sheriff. You have state police. You have 3 different police forces in the same area. Why?
That's based on population, because if you go to Texas, it's just you have Austin Police, but anything outside of like the major cities, you're a Texas trooper or a Texas Ranger. Like, because we're in a dense populated area, that's why we have cops of the communities. But you go to like bumblefuck of the country, it's just like, this is the state police and that's it, and they oversee everything.
Yeah. And by the way, those are the people who should be carrying guns around, because they don't have cops for like 30 miles. If some shit's going down, like, you're on your own. So those are the people who should be allowed to carry guns around, in my opinion.
I want to move along here, but we could probably talk about this for hours. We might have to make this a 2-parter or something at some point. But with the onset of the protests, specifically in that late May, early June period, there was countless videos, countless examples of police forces enacting violence on peaceful citizens, just out there protesting, speaking their voice. And with little to no, punishment for those cases. I mean, look at the police officer that was driving through a crowd in New York City, or the old man that got pushed down in Buffalo and cracked the back of his skull open.
That's rough.
And I saw videos from Columbus, where I lived for almost 3 years. Like I saw videos there of them pushing a guy out of a wheelchair. He couldn't even walk because he was still protesting. And that's literally right after this George Floyd stuff happens and these videos happen. So how can any of those people expect the public to trust them? My trust and faith in police went out like that when I saw some of these videos. I instantly have a completely different view on the police force. And it's sad to say, because I'm sure at the individual level, a lot of them hate it just as much as I do and I disagree with it. That stuff really upsetted me. I want to talk about the Kenosha shooting as that relates to the riots, because there's a lot of debate. I know I posted something pretty heated on my Facebook. That got a lot of people a little PO'd on, but fuck them. I told them, get your head out your ass, basically. I wanted to talk about how you guys feel about that situation. Basically, and this is my understanding of it, a 17-year-old kid drove about 45 minutes to the protest going on in Kenosha, where knowingly violent people were already there protesting with a rifle. He shot somebody in the head, and then there was the video of him getting chased by the protesters. I think one of the protesters actually had a gun aimed at the kid, and he shot that guy in the arm and then shot another protester in the chest. So the big debate around this was that self-defense or that guy is the problem? My view is, if you look at it in the vacuum, that little issue of him running from them and the guy in the chest, if you're just looking at that scenario, yeah, that is self-defense. But if you're looking at the whole story, I don't think it was self-defense at all. He put himself in that situation. Also, he's 17. His parents should be held accountable to some degree as well. But let's start with what are your guys' thoughts? Let's start with you, Ralphie.
I got a lot of mixed feelings on this one. I mean, the fact that he's underage, he's 17 and he has a freaking AR-15. He's open carrying. Obviously, that's a crime. Someone needs to be held accountable. I don't know if it's his parents or him, but that itself is the crime, the way I see it. He should have never been there. But at the same time, someone had to be there, the way I see it. Because, I mean, I just saw so many videos of businesses, like small businesses being burned and business owners being attacked. And honestly, there's no one there to like lay down the law and protect these people. The cops aren't doing shit. They're kind of just letting the protesters do whatever they want. So it's kind of up to these business owners to defend themselves. And I saw one video where this business owner, he didn't have a gun or anything. He was just trying to defend his business, and he had like a fire extinguisher, and he was like spraying people down. And he ends up getting knocked out and like assaulted.
I saw that.
Yeah, I think that was in the chat. But there's no way for these business owners to protect their livelihood. And at the end of the day, it is their livelihood. Like, let's be clear. Like, this is what their living is. If their business goes up in flames, their life is fucked, and there's no one there to save them. So, to a certain extent, I kind of think it's a little bit noble. And I know this is fucking like a little debatable, but I think it's a little bit noble for these guys to show up with guns and stand in front of these businesses against these protesters who are burning shit down and like are clearly violent. Like, I think it takes balls, and I think it's a little bit noble because there's no one there to protect these people from the riots. And let's be clear, they are riots. Like, obviously not all the people there are violent, but I mean, from the footage I've seen, a lot of them are. They're violent, and they're stealing 100%. And they're breaking into people's businesses, taking whatever the fuck they want. Like, there's consequences for that. That affects people. It's not just about, the protests. Like, there's victims there, those business owners. So this guy, this 17-year-old, like, I don't know, like, I'm totally split. Like, I think half of me is like, that guy's got balls, and I think what he was trying to do is pretty noble at the end of the day, honestly. And then the other half of me is like, dude, just fucking stay home. Like, it's not your business. It's not your, you just stay home. Because you're kind of looking for trouble walking around with a fucking AR-15 in a clearly violent situation.
that's where I kind of think, I don't necessarily agree with like a first degree murder charge in this scenario, but I think a manslaughter, a second degree, is definitely warranted for that kid.
The shooting itself is self-defense, clear cut. Because there's people coming after him with like weapons, dude, like blunt objects. I think someone had a gun. I don't think he had it out, but he had it on him. But they're coming after him with like sticks, skateboards. Like they're trying to fucking kill that guy, dude. They're trying to fucking kill that guy. Let's be clear. Like they're going for a kill on that guy, or at least a knockout, hospitalization minimum. So, and he's got a gun in his hand, so that's self-defense, man.
But he's kind of a clown for going
Don't attack a man with an AR-15. Like it's fucking stupid.
That's stupid too. I mean, that's obviously dumb. I'm not denying that.
Did you see the video of the guy, the first guy that got shot, the one that got shot in the head? I don't know if you saw the initial video. He's the guy in the gas station that's yelling, "Shoot me, N-word, shoot me." And apparently, I mean, from what the reports are and what I've read, what I've seen is he had charged at him initially first. Then somebody threw a glass bottle at him. And then after the glass bottle was thrown at him and he felt like he was being chased, that guy he shot. Now, I don't know if the guy was running at him, but apparently that guy had reached for the gun or was coming at him that he had felt warranted to shoot. Then when running down the street, that guy hit him with the skateboard. Somebody came at him and that's when he shot him in the stomach. And then the third guy who had came at him had a gun in his hand. Like from the pictures, you can see he had a gun in his hand that he got his arm like blown off with. So I don't know. I think that he's going to get away with all the charges of murder, and I think he'll end up only getting just for being underage and over state lines. And he'll end up doing jail time for sure.
Do you think that's right though? Do you think that's the right outcome?
I don't think he should have been. I understand what you're saying about someone having to be there, right? Like,
Right.
yeah, somebody has to protect the business. But this kid who's 17, he's not from Kenosha. He's not from there. If he was from Kenosha and he was 17 fending off, I would say, okay, this is your family business. This is your family, whatever, or a family friend. Okay, that's fine. But you're coming 45 minutes away.
I don't think he was there to defend businesses. I don't think that's his purpose was. I think he was there to be a police officer. And, what's the best way to be a police officer? Be violent. And I'm not sure about the first shooting. I'm not 100% sure on the circumstances. I don't think anybody really is clear on the circumstances of the first guy he shot. But I agree with Ralphie that, the two assholes that chased him, they were going for blood. And the sole survivor that got shot in the arm is just as guilty as the guy with the AR-15.
Yeah. And he was, and to be clear, the Kyle Rittenhouse, Pants, whatever his name is, 17-year-old kid, was not like actually firing at other protesters when he was running away. So he wasn't like firing just willy-nilly at people. So that to add to your guys' points there.
I mean, they're making this guy who got shot in the arm like he's some sort of good guy. He's a piece of shit too.
Yeah.
It's identity politics. All identity politics.
They show him on the media crying like a little bitch with his arm in a sling. Like, fuck you, dude. You came after him with a pistol. Like, you're just as bad. Like, go fuck yourself.
For sure.
He should be charged.
I agree.
The same as the kid with the AR.
Agree.
But I also agree with Ralphie's point as well. He's underage. He shouldn't have been there to begin with an AR. He's not even allowed to legally own one. So I mean, and this is a whole other debate, and I'm kind of scared to even bring this up. But even with the current gun laws, did not prevent this kid from taking his AR-15 down the street. But let's table that. But
we gotta cover that at some point, though.
Yes.
I still think that's the whole reason cops are violent. But go ahead. We'll table that. Go ahead, Walter. Yeah.
I really don't think it's ever a good idea to encourage vigilante justice. Like, we just got done talking about how shitty the cops are and how they need more training. They need to de-escalate. Well, who's gonna do a really bad fucking job of de-escalating something? Is this goddamn 17-year-old kid with an AK? Like, what the fuck, man? Like, who?
Fresh off a war zone.
Like, yeah, stay home, man. Play some Call of Duty. Go play paintball if you got like a hero boner or something that you gotta like get out. But you're just all you're doing. So back to what you guys were saying, that the first guy was shouting, "Shoot me! Shoot me! Shoot me!" Like that, to me, that's clear evidence that him being there with the rifle escalated the whole thing that didn't need to be escalated, because obviously that guy felt threatened, because anybody feels threatened when they're faced with a rifle. Like when I go to Port Authority and I see the guys with the military gear and they got their AK, I'm like, what the fuck? What are you guys doing here? Like, I get a little sketched out. So I think that's the more important or interesting part of the conversation, is like, should we? And the Ahmaud Arbery, that was a case of somebody trying to be a vigilante, right? His whole thing was like, oh well, this guy was stealing from. I don't even remember what he said he was worried about. That, but he's like,
yeah, they had.
Yeah,
I think they've had instances of like break-ins or someone trespassing on this property under construction in the past.
Yeah.
So yeah, these.
That's a cop
Yeah.
out for.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A straight up lynching.
Sure,
yeah.
but either way, like I think 9 out of 10 vigilantes are gonna do the wrong thing and be terrible at what they're trying to do. So
Yeah.
encouraging that for any reason, I'm like, nah, dude.
But how should these business owners defend their shit, or should we just allow these mobs to just destroy people's well-being? You know what I mean? Because the cops are not there, dude. There's no one there to protect these people. They're on their own.
The cops should be there, but they should be kind of not fucking with people who are innocent.
There's this image I saw circulated, and it was like, why are police forces lining up like this for these protests and not like this? And it's basically the image of what they are doing is they're lining up across the streets, not along the sidewalks, just boxing people in. But it's more like, why aren't they lining up between the streets and the buildings to protect these businesses? I can see the tactical point of you have a wall behind you, so you have no escape route if you're a police force. I get that. But it brings in that question, and
It's not what they're out.
why aren't they there?
It's not their priority.
They don't have no. I don't think even legally, and I should probably look this up, but I think legally, police don't have a duty to protect. I don't think so. I think the priority for police officers is to protect themselves. I got to look that up, but as far as protecting your business, what you should do is exercise your Second Amendment right. I think that's why it's there.
So get insurance. I mean, I know it sucks, but it will help.
But these people do have insurance. But like, why should they have to like start from the bottom and have to wait? You know, this is pandemic time, dude. These people are all suffering. Just because they're in the middle of America and not New York City or one of these big areas that have been hit, doesn't mean that like businesses aren't suffering. So why should they just take the bullet? Like, that's bullshit. I'm sorry. That's huge bullshit.
I agree.
I'm with you there.
And first of all, the first shooter actually came at him and lunged forward before he got shot in the groin and then shot in the thigh and then grazed in the head. So, I mean, I do think that he was wrong. The kid shouldn't have been there to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, that's the beginning of it. He's 17. He shouldn't have been there.
I think we can all agree on that.
Legally,
if Kyle
what's
owned the
gonna happen?
business, then hell yeah, like go ahead, protect
Or his
your
family
business.
owned the business. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, even
exactly.
that, I would say, okay, I understand. You know,
I'm all for the people protecting their businesses. I'm not against that.
The expectation now is for business owners to be like rifle carrying, fucking, willing to fucking kill, like willing to, is that the expectation? I don't know. I think that's kind of ridiculous.
I mean, unfortunately, during these times, this is where
I don't think it's
I wouldn't say
expectation.
like on a
But
day-to-day business.
when your hand is forced, I mean, what are you supposed to do?
They're not all going to be willing to do that, though.
Yeah,
Not everybody's willing to risk their life and, face a fucking mob. Which is why I think that's why I make the argument it's kind of noble for these people to step in and put themselves on the line to do that.
I agree, but I don't think the 17-year-old kid was that noble person.
Oh yeah. I agree.
So then, do you think in situations? I mean, do you think in situations there should be? Do you think there should be a middle line between police and society? And do you think that those people between police and society should have guns?
No. I agree with Walter about how if cops can't fucking conduct themselves in a professional manner, then vigilantes certainly cannot either. They're going to do a worse job. I'm with you there. That's actually a really good point. But if no one's there to protect these businesses, like, someone's got to fucking do it. Someone's got to do it, dude.
I think Johnny's insurance point originally is just like there's really not that much at stake, man. Like if a couple windows get broken, like they get a check. Like I understand, like it's
Or you
one
get
thing.
looted, or cars burn, whole car lot burns.
The whole damn
It's a
business burns
hassle.
down.
It goes back to my whole point on the protests. If you don't cause inconvenience, they're not going to matter. When someone's just kneeling during a national anthem, people get pissed off of that and nothing happens. And I don't like the violence. I'm not saying it's a good thing. If I had a business, I would be pissed off. I would want to defend it. Don't have a business though, like that. So
then you don't understand.
I understand why they destroy them. That part I understand.
But do you understand why then
people
somebody
get upset.
deserves to get shot if you're trying to burn my business down? If somebody comes into my store and I shoot them because they're trying to throw a Molotov cocktail.
I don't disagree with that, but the 17-year-old kid didn't own a business in Kenosha. He drove there for 30 miles.
I think we all agree that 17-year-old kid's a piece of garbage. Let's
cut Kyle out of the. Let's take him out of the equation entirely. What about the people who are of age, legal, gun carriers? They have their permit. Their weapon is registered. They're of age. What about those guys? Let's talk about them instead of Kyle. Fuck Kyle.
Where were they when the police were beating up peaceful protesters? That's why it's a one-sided thing to me. Is when people say the Second Amendment's to prevent tyranny, it was proven no, because they weren't protecting the peaceful protesters who were getting tear gas and beat by police batons for exercising their First Amendment right, the most crucial right, the one right that we have above owning weapons. This country.
I guess the way the vigilantes see it is those people put themselves into that situation willingly, whereas business owners are just minding their own fucking business, literally, and they're being attacked.
That's an excellent.
That's the difference.
Excellent.
But why is it the vigilantes' responsibility? Why would they protect the business but not the people?
Because of what I just said. Because the business owners are just literal victims, dude. They are victims. Whereas the protesters, they made that conscious decision. I'm gonna go out in the streets tonight, and I'm gonna fucking put my life at risk. They put themselves in that situation. Business owners, they're already fucking there. Their business is there.
It's on the street.
And all this shit is coming down around them, and there's nothing they can do. And there's no one there to protect them.
There's no one there to protect people's First Amendment rights.
I'm gonna be that fucking guy. I'm gonna put myself between this victim, the business owner, and this mob. They don't feel the same way about protesters because they put themselves there. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense. I don't think that's why a lot of the vigilantes that we're seeing are there, though.
See, I don't know if I agree with that. I think they're explicitly there to protect businesses, including Kyle, by the way. There's video footage of him like running around with a fire extinguisher, like putting out fires, dude.
I don't
think
want
he
to
was
be.
Also, the first aid kit.
Kyle wants to be a cop. He wasn't there.
Yeah.
He's there for his own self gain. He's not there for anybody but his damn self. 17 years old. What the fuck does he know about protecting businesses or owning a business or being in a position of owning a business? He's a kid.
I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here either, but like, how is property damage that's going to be reimbursed by one of these corporate insurance greedy, corrupt companies the same as loss of life? Like, how are they on the same level? I don't think that they are. Like, if I have a store, I love my store, but if I'm a barber and all my, barber chairs get ripped up and burnt up, I'm going to get brand new ones with the check that gets cut to me. So it's not, I think it just gets overblown what's really on the line for the business owners. You know what I mean?
I think it's an emotional reaction, dude. Because in the moment when they see their business being destroyed, everything they fucking worked for and everything they take pride in, it's like an emotional reaction. Like, fuck, like everything I take pride in is being destroyed. And I think that emotional reaction kicks in. They're not thinking about the insurance or like
they should read their policies.
Yeah. I would like to point out though, because I don't want to be the one that's bashing businesses. I don't like the businesses being destroyed. There's a bagel place around the corner that actually got vandalized for me that I love going to. I mean, it sucks, and I'm not for it. I just understand why it happens, and I don't think in a time when people are fighting for equal rights and not to be systemically oppressed, then if a business goes under and that's what causes people of color to have equal rights and not be systemically oppressed in this country going forward, then that is worth it to me. I don't agree with killing people. I'm generally, pacifist outside of sports and movies. I hate violence, and I'll talk about that all day, where I think you kill somebody no matter what the reason is, it's murder. I think if the ends justify the means to a certain degree, that line stands true to me.
It's a fair point.
Any final thoughts before we come to our common ground?
I think if you step into my business and I'm owning your business and you try looting it or blowing it up and I shoot you, that's not a problem.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that if that's your business. If it's your business, you have
I just have
every
to
right
end on that point. Is that like I want to protect my business?
So
I agree with that point.
I did some research about my statement that police are not required to protect you. There's a case, the Shawnee versus Winnebago County Department of Social Services, and the ruling from the case determined that here's one of the. I'll just read this paragraph here. Nevertheless, the court found that the government had no affirmative duty to protect any person, even a child, and in this case it was a child that was abused, from harm by any other person. Quote, nothing in the language of the Due Process Clause itself requires a state to protect the life, liberty, and property of its citizens against invasion by private actors, end quote, stated Chief Justice Rehnquist for the majority. Even when such aid may be necessary to secure life, liberty, or property interests of which the government itself may not deprive the individual without due process of the law. So basically it says cops have no duty to step in. If they feel like they don't need to step in, they have no duty to do so.
The fuck's the point?
Protect. What a lie.
So you wonder why people arm up?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, you wonder why vigilantes show up too,
right?
Yeah. With that, I think we're still going to be searching for some common ground on this. I think we'll definitely touch back on this issue again
we
in the
got
future.
common ground. Kyle shouldn't have been there.
But we did find common ground. Kyle shouldn't have been there, and he caused the violence to a degree, but it's not the only cause, and we have different views on whether those actions were noble or not. I think we definitely did also find common ground. I mean, we really feel like 4 incidences we touched at the very beginning were pretty horrible. I know you, Ralphie, are a little bit more of the line of the Jacob Blake case specifically that wasn't as much of a issue for you. Also, I think we did find common ground that generally the police force needs to be improved and through policy. We just need better policy all around, but whether that's more funding or less funding or reallocating other funding within the police force, however that funding is being distributed now is not common ground we stand on. So I just wanted to get some final thoughts on this. How do you guys feel about the common grounds that I mentioned? I'll start since I tend to end. Final thoughts are all 4 of these actions were disgraceful by the people that perpetrated them, meaning the cops and the civilians who murdered Ahmaud Arbery. I think the protests are justified. I think I didn't actually touch on this. I think it's a collection not of just the race issues going on, but income inequality and also people just being frustrated in general about where their lives are currently and just wanting to go out and yell and scream. I think at the beginning, the protests, including the damage to local businesses, was understandable, not necessarily justified, but I understand it, and I'm all for it if it gets them to having equal rights and ending that systemic racism that people of color experience. I think these protests are doing good, and people are able to keep in mind the message that the peaceful protesters are trying to get out there. I do think it's been hijacked by more violent protesters and looters, which is what media is covering more, and it tends to distort the message that is really needed right now. And yeah, those are my final thoughts. Let's hand it over to you, Donnie. Why don't you go first, our special guest?
Thoughts. I agree with you. I mean, these events, these horrible acts where overwhelmingly is people of color who are getting persecuted and murdered, and truly murdered by police is appalling. I think that the solution is quite simple, and it's right in front of our faces. It's just a matter of getting people to, when I say people who actually are in charge and actually can make change, their asses in gear and implementing. The solutions include providing opportunity for folks who live in these underdeveloped neighborhoods, and reforming the police and appropriately funding or restructuring how police are trained and organized throughout the country. I think with those two simple, pretty common sense, in your face solutions, I think we will start to see a whole lot less of police brutality. That being said, as far as racism is concerned, I don't know what the solution is. People are just people. I think I don't know. I think that might be another topic for another time. I mean, it's
definitely. I feel like we barely even touched on racism at all in this, even though that's kind of what's causing this. We really didn't touch on it. But yeah, continue.
No, that's pretty much it. Pretty much what my final thoughts are on these subjects we discussed today.
Cool. What about you, Alfie? Hear from you.
I just want to reiterate my argument from before about guns, because I really do feel like the Second Amendment is actually the cause of police violence. I really do strongly believe that. As long as cops perceive a potential lethal threat from the general public, they will be trigger happy. They will be quick to take out their gun and pull the trigger. I don't think that's ever going to change. I really strongly believe that. It's not like that in other developed nations. If you look at the statistics, they have far less police violence. And I think it's because of the gun laws. I really do. So I don't think the gun laws are going to change. I don't think the availability of guns are going to change. Therefore, I think cops are going to continue to be violent. I think it's actually a part of American culture. So the best thing we can do is just learn how to deal with cops, because I really truly believe it's not going to change. As for the protests, I think the way to address it is to address the underlying issues, which we briefly touched on: income inequality, education, healthcare, minimum wage. Just giving these people an opportunity to make something of their lives. And I think that will help remediate this divide in the country. But as for the cops, I don't think they're going to change, because they're going to keep looking out for their own asses, and that's it. That's all they care about. I just don't see that changing. That's just me.
From you, Arnold, your final thoughts on these?
Well, final thoughts here. Definitely surprised that me and Ralphie kind of agreed on a lot of points tonight. Just, I feel like we both find so many common grounds on things, but like when it comes to certain things, it's just like we're definitely on the complete opposite side. But I mean, if I don't take it tonight, I mean, it's definitely can see that there's racism still in our system for sure, even amongst the police, especially. My final thoughts are, I think that we've discussed, and what Donnie said is about, keeping police officers from the community, policing the community. I don't think that you should be bringing, people from outside the community that don't reflect who the people are of the community, who don't know the community, to be policing them. And I think that'll definitely solve some of the problems. I do agree that there definitely needs to be more funding so that these police officers can get all law enforcement can get proper training to de-escalate these situations and things like that, so they don't lead to shooting someone 7 times in the back. But I'm totally against all the freaking looting and kind of sick of all this protesting and shit. I'm all for like the movement but I'm not against that I'm against the 7% that's going on. That is not peaceful.
Actually, a great way to phrase that.
I think that there needs to be some sort of, I don't know. I really don't know the solution. I think that there needs to be some sort of way to break up these protests and protect the city. I don't see things being positive. And I mean, my final thoughts are, let's pray for America and just hope that like we can come out of this in 2020.
I don't know if Ralphie will
it's a good year.
Ralphie be the first one at the church.
Based on episode 1. I would like to say we went through this whole episode without blaming Trump for any of this, which I think a lot of people don't do. So kudos to all of us. That.
That's been going on for a long time.
And Walter, top us off with your comments.
All right, man. I'll try and be brief. I'm just gonna rattle off a couple of bullet points here. So I think violence is bad. I think it's okay to support Black Lives Matter and to say that violence and looting is bad. I think the looting and the violent protesting is a symptom of like a much bigger malignancy, like we've all talked about. I think vigilantes are never the way to go. And I really think that while Arnold has tried to do his best to kind of represent the sort of the right wing side of this argument, I do feel like it largely got left out from our conversation, and it's one that's really important. It's a very scary conversation that we got to have, and we got to be better at having. And I don't know how things are going to go from here, but hopefully we'll get through it and try and be better.
That's a very good point. The perspective of 5 white guys who are generally left-leaning talking about this. We definitely need other perspectives in here.
I don't really lean that left though. I lean more right on topics.
Yeah,
and I think I do lean more right on, and I think that, to be honest with you, Ralphie here was leaning a lot more right on certain topics tonight too.
Yeah.
Which is like, kind of like, whoa.
No. I'm not a purist, dude. I'm not a purist.
We're back. We're going to talk about what is your favorite fast food burger chain. This is a hot topic. Out here in California, everyone likes In-N-Out. So I'm going to kind of rank out. I'm going to give you 5 options, but if I'm missing like a big one, let me know. And I want you guys to rank them in order from 1 to 5. If you haven't had one, because I know a few of you haven't had some of these, put it in where you think it would be based on your perception. So the choices we have are In-N-Out. We're going to go Whataburger. We're going to go Five Guys. Shake Shack. And what's a good 5th one? I want to say either like Steak and Shake or
Roy Rogers.
Just too.
Kidding.
There's Roy Rogers. I've never had that.
That's a classic.
I'm gonna go number 1 by far. It's gotta be Five Guys. I've had all these options, and I think Five Guys, their burger just tastes more different than the other options. You know what I mean? Like, I think it just has a better quality to it. You can tell that they use a good fat to lean meat ratio in their patties, which I appreciate. So I gotta go Five Guys number 1. Number 2, I have to say Whataburger. Whataburger is delicious. Underrated. Very underrated.
This is so funny.
Number three, I'll give it to In-N-Out, just because I eat it a
Yeah,
lot.
Five Guys, huh?
They do have Five Guys. I just In-N-Out has a drive-through. Five Guys is lacking on that front, so I'll give In-N-Out the edge on that. But that's the only edge they get.
Guys.
Five Guys or In-N-Out's good for the quality of the food you're getting and the price. It's pretty cheap. Number four, what was the fourth? Smash Burger and what else? Smash Burger's last for me.
Smash
Shake
is
Shack.
terrible.
Shake Shack and Smash can probably be equal, but I'll go Shake Shack 4 and Smash 5. I got Five Guys. I got Whataburger. And now Shake Shack and Smash Burger. Let's hear from you guys.
I guess I'll go next because I've had all of these as well. This is my ranking. In-N-Out is by far my favorite out of the five. I do agree though, Five Guys is a strong contender, but they're gonna be my number two. Followed by Shake Shack, which is like, for me, I feel like an East Coast New York kind of thing. So it kind of touches close to home type thing. Smash is just like whatever, and Whataburger is absolute trash. Like, I hate Whataburger. I hate Whataburger.
No way, dude.
Yeah.
You cannot have In-N-Out 1 and Whataburger 5. They're like the exact same
Yeah.
thing, except with different
No, they're
little sauce
not.
on it.
No, they're not, dude.
I don't even know what the fuck you guys are talking about.
Whataburger is a big no for me.
I've never had In-N-Out or Whataburger.
Oh.
You're missing
Like when I'm in
out.
Texas and I see a Whataburger and then an In-N-Out right there, I'm like, fuck Whataburger, and I'm driving right to the In-N-Out.
I had both in Texas. That's the only reason I know them.
Fucking hell.
Walter, what are your top 5?
Five Guys number one, not only for the burger, but also
You can talk about bun ratio right now.
I'm all about the bun ratio. So
Do you like a big bun or a small bun?
No,
I fucking called it.
All right, I'm
What
gonna
buns
just
do you
bring
like
up
in your
Buzz.
Five Guys?
Hear him out. Shh.
Dude, Buzz has the largest bun you'll ever fucking encounter, and the beef is like this big. You get a mouthful of bun, dude. Nobody wants that.
Get a bigger burger.
It's terrible.
burger.
I like more bun, but
Burger.
I like a mouthful of buns, dude.
It's so overhyped. But anyway,
Speak for
bottom
yourself,
bun.
dude.
Bottom bun
where
needs to
should you,
be
Ralphie?
big.
Oh my god, dude.
I was gonna say that Five Guys is number one, not only for the burger, but because one time me and Ralphie were there, and we were sitting at this bar, right, and it like looks out into the parking lot, like the big glass window, and we're sitting out looking at the parking lot, and this guy in a Jeep just slowly rolls past us with the doors were off the Jeep, and his seat was all the way back, dude. Like he was like laying down driving the car. And it was just so funny, and I still think about it like 12 years later. So Five Guys wins, and I haven't had Whataburger. I haven't had In-N-Out. Fuck the rest. I don't really care. It's all about Five Guys.
There you go. Alfie,
Word.
let our guest go last.
Sure.
That's a tough one, dude. I'm gonna have to put Whataburger as number one because, I mean, I feel like Whataburger is like genuine fast food. You know, I don't know if Five Guys falls into the fast food category. As far as fast food goes, Whataburger is killing the game. So I got to give him a lot of credit and put him at number one. Five Guys is my number two, though. Followed by In-N-Out, and then Shake Shack, and then Smash. That's my order.
Pretty similar to mine. Just had the
Yeah,
top
it
two
is.
switched.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Typically, it's even like our politics.
Smash is trash. It's a trash burger, dude.
Yeah.
That's our common ground, dude. Smash is garbage.
I mean, Steak and Shake. I'd
has
put Steak
nothing
and
going
Shake.
for it.
If we were gonna throw Steak and Shake in there, I'd put them above Shake Shack. Actually, that's a wild
Me too.
card. But
I don't think I've ever been there. I've only been there once.
great. All right, Donnie.
Turn. All right, I'm going completely off script. I hate your choices. So
Oh.
I'm going to do
Okay.
number one, White Castle.
What?
No! Best
Wow,
burgers
dude.
ever.
Jesus.
Best burgers ever.
Dude.
That's occasional.
So in
every
the
once in a while.
frozen section at Kroger. Why would you?
And let me tell you something. The frozen burgers taste just as good as the fresh burgers you get in the restaurant. They're delightful.
It's because of the same.
What the fuck? Bro, you
So
gotta
you're gonna
screen
sell
these
them
guests.
You're never invited back.
And I have good memories with Dad going to White Castle, so they're kind of sentimental to me.
True.
2 Fuddruckers. I know the bun to beef ratio is not in your favor there, Walter, but I like Fuddruckers that you could put so many toppings on there, as many as you want, which is pretty dope. I like a lot of lettuce and onions and cheese and all that good shit.
I'll give you that.
That's nice.
Toppings are dope.
Yeah.
The topping
Then
COVID bar?
five-
Yeah, definitely.
Then Five Guys. Five Guys is dope. They're a little greasy though.
Yeah, they are.
I've never had In-N-Out or Whataburger, so I can't really say anything about that. I would say Sonic is number 4. Great hangover.
Ew.
Fucking food, man.
Ew.
Oh my god, they're so salty and delicious. And Shake Shack, fuck Shake Shack. They charge like $10 for a burger. That's a bunch of bullshit. Fuck
The
them.
burgers are tiny. They're tiny too. They're not big.
Yeah. They gotta
$5.65.
overrate their portion.
I just bought Shake Shack from Parsonage. It was $5.65 for a single, $6.95 for a double. But with the
So like
fry
a
and
slider?
drink, that's like
Slider
$11.
size.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
For fucking hamburger? Come on, bro.
Five Guys is overpriced.
I get double
too, though.
double. Yeah, I get double in and out.
Because they're priced, but
So,
they
there you
hook
go.
you up with the fries. I mean, if we bring the fry game in there, which I didn't mention at the beginning, but fries are solid.
Fuddruckers had unlimited fries.
Dude, I can't
Fuddruckers had
believe White
unlimited
Castle,
fries.
man. White Castle is the shit.
White
So
Castle.
good.
It also gives you the shits though too.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun.
Or part of the danger, the risk.
You
I'd
come,
agree with
into my
that.
you come into my business with a gun, there's gonna be a problem. That's the quote of the night.
So what you're saying is, if a protest erupts, you're more likely to defend a White Castle than you are a Shake Shack.
Yeah, actually, I guess
Throwing his
so.
life on the line for White Castle.
For White Castle.
You're pulling a Kyle for White Castle.
These
Oh my
69, these 69 cheeseburgers, 69-cent cheeseburgers. I'm throwing my life on there. The line. There's delicious onion rings. Oh my god!
All the onions.
420.69 Blaze.
I want to say that either In-N-Out or Five Guys probably landed closest to the top. I'd say In-N-Out probably won that. I know Donnie hasn't eaten that, but I'd say In-N-Out's probably number 1. Five Guys probably number 2. The rest are kind of mixed in between. I don't know though, because Ralphie and I both like Whataburger better than In-N-Out. So nobody, you're on an island there, Donnie, with White Castle. I think
I like White Castle. I'll give them. I like White Castle. I wouldn't say the frozen burgers are even remotely same to the drive-through experience. You just can't drive those home. You got to pull over and eat it right away in the parking lot. You can't
Yeah.
you can't bring the crave case home.
Yeah.
It's like Ledgewood's like a 30-minute drive. So it's like by the time you
Yeah.
come, it's just soggy, wet.
It's just a moist
forgot it's a
disaster.
crave.
And then it
Moist
becomes
disaster.
the microwave burgers that you. It becomes the microwave burgers that you get in the frozen food section.
Yeah, I don't
Fucking
know about
case,
White.
dude.
I don't know about White Castle.
I love White
Well,
Castle.
yeah,
You ever had it?
I've had it. They have them in Ohio.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I've had it a few times, but it's still, even I think, like growing up, is one of those places my parents just never took me to. It's always just like
They knew better.
McDonald's or Burger King. You know, they just knew better. So
You stop there on the way home from Jets
Come
games.
on,
going
Ralphie. Come
home.
on. You know you love those little sliders.
No, I love them, but they do give you the shits and the farts.
Yeah. Not
Oh,
worth
yeah.
the pain.
That's
man.
Big shit, dude. It cleanses your colon for sure.
I think that's the wrap. We definitely like burgers. We have different tastes in burgers. One of us has awful taste in burgers. I'll let you decide, though, whoever's listening, who that is. But that is not for me to judge. But thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week I don't know what the topic's going to be, so stay tuned. It'll be a nice little surprise for you listening, and we'll pick up from there.
News, politics, culture, current events. We all have different views, but we stand on common ground. We all have different views, but we stand on common ground.